Okay, good morning, everybody. Happy new week. I'm super excited to be here with my gorgeous, amazing author, Jane Arlett, who wrote a book, A Big Little Business. Shower, Jane. Yes, I love it. I am very excited to be talking to you today because I have read this book cover to cover, and we're talking just a bit earlier about the workbook with it, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But I'm very excited for you to share from your own, with your own words, some of the insights and gold that you have put into this book. So without further ado, I'm going to do your official introduction, and then we're going to get stuck into our little interview here. So guys, Jane is one of North Queensland's most prominent business women and has been actively involved in the local business community for the last 25 years. Jane built her business, a group of businesses in allied health and retail, from startup through to $10 million turnover before selling it to a large multinational company. So whilst building her businesses, she had a parallel career as a board director with large organizations with over $1 billion turnover, helping her develop and refine a high-level strategic mindset. So Jane now operates a business growth and strategy consultancy, helping other businesses achieve that sustainable growth. She grew her career through the times of breaking the glass ceiling, and is passionate about supporting women to have their voice and to succeed. She's actively involved in mentoring programs to support women in business. So she has authored now her first book, Big Little Business. It came out December 2020 release, and is about to release a 6-week Grow Your Own Little Business course. Wow, that's a amazing bio, Jane. Thank you so much for being with us this morning.
Thanks, Nat, and I think I have to get you to introduce me everywhere I go. That sounded wonderful. So
I'll do a recording for you. You can play it. I love it. Beautiful. So let's make it relevant, I guess, to this world of authoring, because you've worked with many different businesses of all shape, sizes, and with solopreneurs and massive companies and all that kind of stuff. And you recently became an author yourself. And a lot of the time when I meet new authors, they just think, I just want to write a book. They don't think that actually your book is your business, which yes. is I tend to say as well. So can you give me your, kind of viewpoint on that?
Yeah, look, thanks, Nat. And it's so important. I must say I have a lot of your authors and some other authors as well that have reached out to me and purchased the book and going through this. But aside from the authoring journey, solopreneurs, people that just are on their own, often just don't think that they are a business. It's what they do, it's what they love, and it's a hobby. And I think that applies very much to authors. Most of us write a book because we have got some knowledge or some skill or a message that we want to share. And that's kind of the intent in the early stages. But, I always say to authors, if you want to sell at least one book, then you are a business. If you want to just give them away, then that's a pleasant, lovely thing to do. But most people do have to. There is a cost to producing a book, and most of us do have to recoup some of that cost. So if you're planning on selling at least one book, you are a business, and you will do a lot better if you treat it as such. So I remember very early on in my career, in my authoring career, another author reached out to me, and she had bought 500 books in her first print run, and I think she still had about 400. I have had quite a lot of authors contact me from both yourself, your program, and some other authors as well. And my words to authors is that if you plan on selling at least one book, then you're a business, and your business will grow if you start to treat it like that. If you just treat it like I've written a book and just expect it to sell itself, 99.9% of the time that's not going to happen. And I remember in the very early stages, an author reached out to me, and she had purchased, I think, 500 books in her initial print run, and she still had about 480 of them in her home. And, she was really at her wit's end, and she really needed to get them out from a financial perspective, as well as obviously getting her message out there. So we started to go through this process with her and get her to think about, what being a business meant to her and what her intent was. And all of a sudden she's starting to get speaking gigs and starting to get the message out there, which is wonderful. So, and again, I think it's really important to recognize that authors go down their authoring journey for very different reasons. Some of us have got, you know, I mean, for me, it was a supplement for my business and a very important one, which has been great, which we might chat about a little bit more later. But for a lot of people, they've just got information or knowledge that they want to share, or they've had a life experience that they want to share, and that's fine. But as I said, if you're planning on selling at least one, then you need to treat it like a business.
Yeah, I love it. And what are some of the things that you have been doing with your book now that it's been out? Like, you know, how do you use it as a supplement to your business?
Look, there's been quite a lot, Nat, I must say. It really has been quite busy. I was fortunate enough that the foreword of my book is written by Dr. Glenn Richards, who's from Green Cross Vets fame. He's a fellow that I know. He's a Townsville person as well, and we worked together back in the 90s when we were both establishing our businesses. So I've known and kept in contact with Glenn all of these years. And when I was ready to write my book and thought, who can I get to write a foreword? And I thought, well, he's one of the most successful business people in Australia, obviously from Shark Tank fame as well, Australian Shark Tank investor. And yeah, it was interesting because I know him quite well, and I'm sure he gets asked to do an awful lot of these things. So I said, he just said, send me a copy first before he would commit yes or no. And so I sent him a copy. He read it cover to cover on the beach at Noosa when he was on holidays, and he emailed back and said, absolutely, I'll write it for you. So we were very lucky that he came up for the launch of my book, and we had a fairly big launch with all the business people of our region. And that went really well. And then from that, there's been so many other opportunities. So I've got my little whiteboard over here, and I've got I just gave a talk on resilience and growth for businesses, because Townsville's been through some fairly significant flood a couple of years ago, and then COVID, and we get cyclones, etc. So that was on that. I've got a talk on Friday I'm giving, and another one sort of next week. So, you know, there's lots of speaking opportunities, which I was doing to some degree before, but certainly that's opened up. And yeah, just getting the book out there, and particularly we're now turning it into a couple of courses. So we're launching a 6-week course shortly, and that'll be a really combination of theoretical but also very practical advice. So
nice. So is it going to be an online course, or?
Yes, we will. We'll move towards that. So I guess I see doing a face-to-face course as just the initial, and then make sure that we're really on point with what everybody wants and delivering the right sort of information. And definitely we'll look at converting that into an online course, which will probably be in combination with Zoom support as well. So I agree. I think fully just online nowadays is it's your dream, like passive income, but I believe some touch points where you have a weekly Q&A and maybe an interactive group where people can connect into a community and tap into it is really, really important, because they're all of the things that I've been a part of other people's online courses that I've received, and that extra value is second to none. So tell me, I've read the book cover to cover, and my team and I actually took ourselves away for a conference in March, and we printed off the workbook that you talk about that comes alongside this, and we said we're going to do this for our conference and follow Jane's framework of how she teaches stuff, and we look at all the questions we answered, we filled everything out. The whole day we were just sitting there and just working through all the questions and all that. But tell me, like, then what are some strategies or that you can share, you know, like I guess some gold nuggets of how solopreneurs can start thinking a little bit more like a big business? Yeah, Nat, look, I think it's just so important to just set the foundations, right? And you're in the book, chapter 1 and chapter 2 are the keys. And chapter 1 is the workbook. So I was really excited. I mean, I know that you read the book cover to cover. You said that to me when you got it, which was great. Thank you, because I know you get an awful lot of books to read. But the fact that you downloaded the workbook and went through it with your team is wonderful. So you know, I hope that added value.
And that's what I said to them. Read chapter. If you can't read the whole book, at least read up to the end of chapter 2.
Yeah.
You'll be all right. We'll be able to work through the worksheets.
They're the foundations. Nat, do you want me to do a quick screen share?
Yeah,
you might just visualize helping what I'm talking about. So I'm very values based, and so I will always talk about, we start with your business values, which starts with your personal values. And so that's what that workbook talks people through. And it's a free workbook that you can download. Once you've got the book, you can download from there. And then the purpose. And a lot of people in business talk about vision statements and mission statements and so on and so forth. And people get really confused as to what they are. As an FYI, fundamentally, a mission statement is what we're sort of working on and achieving right now. And a vision statement is maybe a bit more futuristic, but everyone's got their own definition of that. I ditch them both and I just have a purpose statement. What's the intent? Why are we here? What's our business about? And what is it that we want to achieve? Once you've got those, everything filters through that. So anything, any opportunity that you're faced with is filtered. Firstly, is it consistent with my values? And if it's not, we don't go there. If it is, then is it consistent with our purpose statement? And if it is, then we can proceed. And then down, once we've got those set, and it really is worth spending quite some time getting that right. Once we've got that, you know where you're heading, and that's the key. Beneath that, then we can have the pillars of our business. So for an author, it might be selling books. It might be doing public speaking events to get your message out there. And it might be, you know, in my case, a face-to-face course and then an online course. So you then start to segment out what elements of your business is it important that you focus on? Because, you know, unlike my lovely lady that was sitting there with 500 books in the or 480 books in her garage, she was just waiting. You know, she only had one pillar, which was book sales, but she didn't have anything else to actually generate those book sales. And so once we started to get those other pillars in line, that worked really well. And the foundations are the things that you do and the things that you know in terms of, you know, having a book, for example, and then having the knowledge and having a training course or being able to publicly speak or whatever. And I should say on that, not everybody wants to do public speaking and not everybody wants to sell a huge amount of books, but that's where starting with that little sort of image and coming back to, you know, what is it? What is my purpose? And what is it that I'm trying to achieve with my book is really, really, really helpful.
Yeah.
So that's where I start. And then the next thing that just quickly to go on from there is chapter 2, which is the big business thinking. And so once you've got to do the first one first. So once you've got your intent and so on and so forth, then we start to look at this structure. And this is where people probably do get a little confused because they go, oh, you know, it's just me. I say, absolutely, it is just you if you're an author. I mean, I'm a solopreneur, just so everybody knows. I don't have a team of people behind me. I did when I had my suite of businesses, but right now it's just me. And we always, this is a normal sort of organizational structure. Now we always start down here and then we come up here. And so essentially what we're looking at is in business, even as an author, you are the chief financial officer of your business. You are the operations officer of your business, the marketing manager and the people manager. And then together, you all are the CEO. Now it's you in all of these boxes, but I'm very big on people segmenting their thought patterns out. Because if you're not taking time as a business author, business owner, to think about the money side of your business, then how are you going to achieve what it is that you want to achieve? And again, the other slide comes first. You've got to know what your purpose and your intent is. And again, operationally, what are we doing to get the message out there? What are we doing if we do want to go and do a talk? What do we have to do operationally to make that happen and so on? Marketing, this is all our social medias and again, speaking and so on is part of the marketing. And people manager, which a lot of people, solopreneurs and authors forget about, that's actually how are our people. And, you know, if you're an author, your people are you, but you do have to make sure that you look after you and have that self-care and make sure that you're functioning. So that's just a little, very, very brief sort of overview of some of the structure. But to me, it starts with that first slide, getting your values and your purpose right, the intent. What do you want? And I often say to people, what does success look like for you? Because for some people, it's selling 1 million books and it's doing public talks and it's having 10 courses. But for most of us, it's not. For most of us, we just want to get the message out there. But be really clear on your intent, and then we can start to set a pathway to achieve that.
Yeah, beautiful. And I loved how you talked about when you do, because it's only you in those in the organizational structure, but you talked about the metaphorical hats you got to put on and the questions that you have to ask. And I think I've got the little handouts about the questions for each of the metaphorical hats, and actually Vivi suggested we should put our caps on and put like CEO and all that. We were going to do something, we never got to it, but it's going to, you know, and we also actually thought about, because we're not one person, we've actually probably have enough for each category. So we kind of thought about, like, Stuart is the marketing manager, and I would be the CEO, and Vivi and Julie more the people, customer service kind of stuff. But we kind of said, even though we need to think and talk about all of these different things, but when you're on your own, absolutely, there's such different questions you got to ask yourself for each of those different roles, isn't there?
They are. And Nat, I talk at the end of the book where I had that situation. I use an example in when I had my podiatry practice, and I had a really, really valued staff member that came to me and said that they wanted to set up a different element of the business. And it wasn't, it was something that she had skills in. It wasn't core to our podiatry business. And my first glance, I mean, I'm busy, I was running a team, I had probably about 60 staff at that stage, and we had, 3 sort of core businesses and a couple of other little businesses. So I was busy, and this staff member comes to me with an idea which is really out of the box. And my initial instinct would be, no, that doesn't make sense to us. It's not part of our core business. But when I stopped and reflected on that, and I will say pause is a really important technique to use. I learned that from Dr. Jo Lukens, one of our other wonderful Townsville authors, through you. And she talks about there's an incident and you can react, or we can have an incident, pause, and then you can choose your response. And that's something that I really just love, that little pause. So when this staff member came to me with this new idea, I stopped and I paused and I went back through, and I'll just do that screen share again on that. So I actually put my little hats on. This was some years ago, and I went, okay, so financial officer, can I make money out of this? And I sat down and did the analysis, and we could. Operations, what do we have to do operationally? Not a lot. We had to do some training, and we had to spend a bit of money to reorganize the business and so on and so forth, but that was easy. Marketing, can we market it? Yes, we could market the heck out of this because she had a very high profile in this area. And people manager, what do we need to do? We'd have to free her up. We had other staff members that could free her up so she could go and do this training and deliver it. And so, once I actually stopped and broke up my thinking according to these different elements, it was actually a pretty easy decision to make. And even though, it's always, I should have put that first slide up first, it needs to be filtered through values. It was very consistent with our values. It wasn't typically consistent with our purpose, but you know what? We changed the purpose slightly to include this other element. So, and that's the other thing I'd say, is that when you set a plan, some people go, oh, I don't like to be constrained by plans and rules and all of this. And I go, you know what? You own the plan. So if your plan is to go this way and you suddenly find it's not working for you, change it. But at least you've got a direction as you go. And I often quote Alice in Wonderland, where Alice is walking through the forest and she comes to a junction in the pathways, and the Cheshire cat comes out, and she says, tell me, which pathway should I take? Which is the right path? And the Cheshire cat said, well, tell me first, where do you want to go? And Alice says, well, I don't rightly know. And the Cheshire cat said, well, if you don't really know, any road will get you there. And I think that's how a lot of us do our authoring journey. Like, we don't really know what our intent is. We sort of write a book and it's great and it's all fun when it first comes out, but what's your intent? And so if you set your intent, which is that first sort of values, purpose, pillars type thing, then it's much easier to head in that direction and make sure everything you do is consistent. And that's when you'll achieve your purpose.
No, I love it. I love it. I remember that story of you sharing, and then that particular strategy worked out really well once you guys implemented it.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Beautiful. So let's move on talking about the magic budget. Tell me about the magic budget. Take a sip out of your coffee. And I'm just going to check in also on if we have any comments here on my other computer. But yeah, I'd love to know what are some of those things you suggest.
I'm very much a numbers girl. I mean, I come from an allied health background, and very much, caring for people is very much at my core and what I do. But I learned very early on in business life that I'm actually quite good at the numbers, and I quite enjoy the numbers. And a lot of people get quite frightened by that. I work with a lot of businesses, apart from authors, from, as I said, solopreneurs and startup, real techie startup type guys, through to, larger companies with a national footprint. But I can tell you the vast majority of people do not operate from a budget. And to me, that's the intent. Once you get up to around a $3 million, $5 million turnover, most of them will there, but certainly the littler ones, and even with a couple of $1 million turnovers, so many businesses don't have a budget. And if you don't have a budget, firstly, how do you know when you know, what does success look like to you? And for a lot of people, there has to be a financial element of that, because you've got to, you know, at the very least pay yourself a wage, and pay, if you've got staff, pay them a wage, and you've got to be sustainable. So you have to have a budget for that. And if you don't have a budget, how do you know, how do you track how you're going? But once I can get people to have a look at what they're actually spending money on, and then set some intent to that. So, you know, how many books are we selling in a month or a year or whatever, and how many do we want to sell? And so once you set that, again, that's having the intent of your business and understanding what success looks like to you, then we can get off our bums and go and do it. So I literally say to people, I want you to have a monthly budget, and I want you to, in your CFO and your CEO meeting, which you should be having those CFO type meetings weekly with yourself. And then you have a CEO meeting with yourself monthly. And that was that agenda thing that you held up there, that once a month you need to track where you're heading. Weekly is too tight a time frame to track too much, but monthly definitely. So my intent was to sell, you know, 10 books this month, or 100 books this month, or whatever it is for you, or a course, or 10 courses, or whatever. And then we check ourselves against that. And the strategic questions there is that, let's say I said that I want to sell 20 books this month, and I get to the end of the month and I've sold none. So the strategic questions are, what most people will do is just go, damn, I had a bad month. But that's not okay. We've got to go, why didn't I achieve my budget? And most importantly, what am I going to do about that? Because the monthly budget, of course, comes up to the end of year budget. So we have a monthly budget, but we've got a whole of year budget. And if you're missing budget regularly, it's easy to go, oh, look, I just had a bad month. Oh, I just had another bad month. I just had another bad month. But they add up. And so it's really important that we keep ourselves on that path as we go. So honestly, that setting a budget, and I call all budgets the magic budget, because once we get people using them and using them well, it just changes your life. And I've got a lady I'm working with now, not an author, but you know, you can see now she's hungry to get the budget, because she knows I'm going to check in with her at the end of the month and say, how are you going, Jackie? So yeah, so you know, it encourages you to get out and do something about selling those 20 books or whatever it is that you want to do.
Makes it specific and measurable, doesn't it?
Absolutely.
Rather than you're not just going on a feeling, you're going on fact, if you like.
Exactly. Yeah. And as I said, when you go on feeling, and again, you know, if people out there going, oh God, I've never even thought about a budget, that's okay, because as I said, most businesses don't. So I don't want anyone to beat themselves up about that. I want people to recognize that's a very common scenario. But yeah, you know, it's very easy for us to make excuses to ourselves. And so once you've got a budget and you've got numbers to track yourself against, you can't really excuse that away.
No, it's right, black and white, right in front of you. I remember earlier on in my journey, I used to, I think, overset, you know, the goals and all that. What do you have any tips around that? Like, because I've known how to pull back and how to do it, like, you know, calibrate myself and the business correctly. Any thoughts around that?
Yeah, look, I'm, you know, hands up, that's me too. I'm, you know, an overachiever, and I think in the early years I would set some really unrealistic goals. And I think the key thing again is set yourself a goal. When I do a budget, I always do the budget for the year first, and then break it up to the monthly budgets. And when I report monthly to myself on how I'm going, I'll report on how did I do this month, but I'm also reporting year to date. And so if I can see over a period of 3 or 4 or 5 months, I'm just simply not hitting my budget, then that lets me have a good hard talk with myself. Have I overestimated and set myself up for failure, which isn't good?
Yeah.
Or am I just being lazy and not getting off my ass and actually, you know, doing the work that needs to get done? So either way, but it just allows me to either take action and get out there and say, no more excuses, Jane, get out there and get this, hit your budget. Or you know what, I am actually working really hard and I'm not hitting my budget, so I need to pull back, or I need to come up with some other innovative idea to help me get there. But it just allows you to reflect. So in terms of how do you stop yourself setting an unrealistic budget, you probably need to set what you want for the first, you know, but you're monitoring it. And if you can hit it occasionally, you know, I hit it this month and not the next month, and then I hit it for 2 months and not for another month, that's okay. That means that you've just got those down months, we've got to sort of change it up a little bit. If you're capable of hitting a budget, you're capable of hitting it. But if you're just never hitting it, then it's probably the wrong budget for you.
Yeah. Well, yeah, I tend to use the word calibrating myself, like, you know, to figure out where I'm at. And then you get to, you know, I think with experience, and when you're brand new, you're still just testing the waters. What am I? What I stand for? Like, you know, a lot of things shift and change, but once you kind of get a little bit more clarity, you become quite, you know, you can plan and you can predict, can't you?
Yeah, and you know, history is our best teacher, of course. So once you've been doing this for a period of time, so people that have had their book out for quite some time can actually reflect back on what they've done, how that's been, and the peaks and troughs and whatever, and then they can pull some figures from that. But when you're a brand new author, probably best thing to do is maybe speak to other authors that are same to you, you know, and probably other authors. I mean, obviously, you know, when you do your training, Nat, you know, you create a nice little community, and obviously, you know, you've got lots of nice little Facebook communities. So I mean, and you're very open with what people can ask. So I'd say just put it out there and ask people. But you want to try and find, as I said, there's a difference between somebody that's already got a, you know, a business already and is out there speaking and doing things. They're obviously going to be very different to somebody that's written a personal life experience type story. So find people in your sort of niche and ask them what they find and what's realistic, because I've found everybody within your group is very open and sharing, and it's a really, really wonderful supporting community.
And the thing is, different people have also different size networks. Some have been out and about and they have a bit of a profile, and other people are just starting out, like myself 11 years ago, completely scratched, didn't know anybody, and really had to get out there and build the network alongside the book, and, you know, build the pillars, everything, you know, from there. So you're absolutely right. Don't compare yourself to people who perhaps are not in the same niche, or have, like, they've been around for 10 years and you've only been around for a few months and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Well, what about writing the book? How was the process? And, you know, going through this journey, I know you were very, very compliant and diligent with all your dates and timelines and all that kind of stuff. How did you find the journey?
Nat, it was 2020 was a big year.
Yeah.
So 2020 was a difficult year. So I work as a business consultant, and as I said, I work a lot in the disaster. I've become a bit of a disaster expert for business recovery. So I work with a lot of businesses in 2017 post Cyclone Debbie, and then 2019 we had the Northwest Queensland floods, which were massive, and then we of course hit COVID. So, you know, I've worked with a lot of businesses sort of through the ups and downs, and 2020 was just massive, and because our region had come off the back of several other disasters, it was really, really emotionally very difficult here. I mean, it's difficult everywhere, and I don't want to belittle anyone else's experience, especially not yours down in Victoria, because you guys were locked up for ages and we weren't. But I had a lot of businesses in a lot of pain, and it was very, you know, very difficult. You know, you can't help people without taking some of that on. Like, I'm trying to protect myself as best as possible, but it was a really, really difficult year. I was crazy busy and dealing with a lot of people in a lot of crisis situations, which is draining. Then I decided to write a book in that year as well. Thank you, Dr. Jo Lukens. But genuinely, thank you, Dr. Jo Lukens. And also my partner Lane had double knee replacement surgery. And all of that kind of happened at the same time. So I really suggest you don't choose to write a book right when everything else is going on. But, you know, by the same token, if you wait for a good time, you'll be waiting forever. But I guess, how did I find the process? I found it difficult because I had so much other stuff going on, but I found the structure that you provided very, very good for me. And again, if we come back to, you know, my sort of values and purpose and pillars, you know, you set out that clear sort of line for me to follow and that pathway. And without that, I think I wouldn't have been able to achieve it. So even though it was a very difficult time and I really did struggle to carve out the amount of time that the book deserved, I did it. And the support that you guys offered was just phenomenal. And, you know, yeah, Stu was amazing and giving me the framework and the skeleton and so on. So, yeah, so I did it. And I think I did the course in August. And we decided to release. I remember you said, right, and you're all going live with your pre-release on Friday. And I said, are you kidding me? I haven't even bloody written the framework yet. Like, it was really, that was very, very confronting for me. And I thought, and it was Jo that said to me, you know, you're committing to do it once you do that. Once somebody's paid you money, then you're going to write the book. And I very much, that was it for me. And you talk about networks, and I only put that out on my personal Facebook page, and I didn't have very many people on my personal Facebook page at all, like 100 and something, like not even 200 at that stage. And it kind of went nuts. and we sold lots and lots of books just in that pre-release, and then absolutely the pressure was on. And once I've got that sort of commitment, I'm absolutely going to fulfill it. And again, the framework that you guys provided was really useful for me, so thank you for that. So we got there and we did the release in December, bang on schedule.
Yeah, yep, with a book launch that we needed to get the books in, so Glenn would be part of it and all that kind of stuff. So amazing. And I absolutely love your cover, because let's take a photo with your book. Let's go. What, you hold up yours as well.
Do it on the other side.
Yeah, good one. Absolutely have enjoyed having you part of this, and of course I've gotten value from it. I've downloaded the workbook, I've read the book. It's always a good reminder to keep going back to it as well, I think.
Yes.
To rejig, because things do shift. This is a living and breathing document, if you like, of what you need to keep considering with your business. Where can people contact you and get this awesome?
They can get it from my website, which is janearlett.com.au, and obviously on Amazon and so on and so forth. I mean, I've got it in quite a few bookstores up north in North Queensland, but haven't ventured too much further than that yet. But probably the website is the easiest. But thanks, Nat, on that conversation too, that you refer back to it, because this is a very easy read. This is not a high-level theoretical book. It's designed for any little business owner, and it comes from that strategy you spoke about before, that I've sat on big business boards and I use the strategies that big businesses use, but applying it down to our very own little businesses, even for solo authors and so on and so forth. So it is a very practical, easy read guide.
And thank you so much for connecting it all to authorship, because I know a lot of people who watch me want to write books or and build businesses behind it. And yeah, absolutely, your book is your business. No matter what you think, it's just a book, I've just written this and all that. You're making money. If you get paid $20 or $30 for it, you got to register that. You got to declare it. Therefore, you have a business income there. Amazing. Thank you. I really appreciate your time this morning. And for anyone, just go to janearlett.com.au. There's a name right there, but we'll post it anyway, the link. But if anyone is listening to this in a podcast or on a YouTube or whatever, not just today's live, that's how you get to it. All right, amazing, guys. Have a wonderful week, and you too, Jane. Keep smashing it out, as I like to say, and we'll talk soon. Bye.
Okay, bye. Cheers.